Welcome to the Lost and Found podcast. I'm your host, Amanda. Join me each week as I rediscover my life's meaning, my passions, and my place in this world after leaving behind the only dream I've ever known. If you're dealing with self-loss, identity changes, career transitions, or you're still trying to figure out your life's purpose, then you're not alone. Join me. Wanderers are always welcome. Hi there. Welcome back to the Lost and Found podcast, a safe space for anyone navigating identity shifts, career pivots, and those what now seasons where you feel untethered from who you thought you would be. Today's guest is Jill Schulman, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, leadership development expert, and a happiness scientist with a master's in applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. Jill is the founder of Breakthrough Leadership Group, and she's spent 2 decades helping individuals and teams build courage, resilience, and peak performance through evidence-based tools and real-world grit. She is the author of The Bravery Effect, a parable-backed, science-informed guide to conquering fear, taking bold action, and building brave relationships. Because as Jill teaches, bravery isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. If you've been feeling stuck, afraid to start over, or trapped in comfort that's quietly costing you your purpose, this conversation is for you. So everyone, please welcome Jill Schulman to the Lost and Found podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Amanda. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. And I'm glad that we were able to schedule everything up together because I know you're a very busy lady, but I would really love to just dive into straight, your iconic story. You've referred to this as, going from your pink pumps to your combat boots and now scientists. And so I would love it if you could talk to us a bit more about what did that trajectory look like for you and what did the Marine Corps teach you about who you're becoming
Yeah.
and who you refuse to be today?
Yeah, I think that there's a thread of bravery throughout my life, which is why I now study it and teach it. But if I go back to when I was 18 years old, so I grew up in the Midwest. I'm in a small town in Minnesota. And I decided that I wanted to live a life of purpose. I wanted to get out of small town Minnesota. So my ticket, like out of small town Minnesota and to pay for my college, was the military. So I decided to apply for a full scholarship paid for by the Marine Corps. And then people ask me like, well, why did you choose the Marine Corps, not the other branches? I'm like, well, duh, the few, the proud, it's the hardest. Of course I want to do that. So I applied for the scholarship and I was lucky enough to get it. And when people get these full ROTC scholarships, then the colleges start recruiting you to get you to come to their school. And I mean, imagine growing up in Minnesota and what the weather's like there. So when I received a letter from the University of San Diego with pictures of their campus, I mean, the decision was made. Like, I want to live in Southern California. So got on a plane at 18, headed to Southern California, San Diego to report into my ROTC unit a week before I started, the college orientation. And I was really confident and excited. And I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And like any 18-year-old girl, I really put a lot of thought into a really important decision. And that was my outfit. Like, what do I wear? Show up. So that's where I say the pink heels. I didn't want to wear a dress because that's too girly. I'm going to be a Marine, right? I also read in my research that Marine Corps officers are not allowed to wear jeans, and that's all kids wear. So I couldn't wear jeans. So I found the perfect outfit. There were these kind of like longer, like silk, hot pink silk shorts that went almost to my knees that looked really professional. And then the shirt was like, they were polka dots. It was pink with white polka dots. And then the shirt was white with a collar that matched the shirt, the shorts. And then I had the perfect heels. And even I had my nails done to match with little gold striping and rhinestones. Like I look like a stunt double to Elle in Legally Blonde.
To say it was instead of going to Harvard, if she had joined the military, this is the
Pretty
beginning.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So on my first day, I reported in and obviously no one looked like me. There was one other female, she didn't look like me. And on that first day, I actually had one of the senior Marines, that I looked up to throughout the day. Toward the end of the day, he came up when we were like standing in formation, and he came over and he leaned over to me, which what I thought was going to be like, welcome to University of San Diego and like something encouragement. But instead he said, you will never make it as a Marine Corps officer. So that was my day one. And the reason I share this is it leads to what I ended up doing my research on, which is bravery. So at that moment, obviously I wasn't having fun. It was hard. And showing up on day two was scary. I had fear. Part of it is because I realized I wasn't as prepared as I thought I was. It was a lot harder than I thought. But I showed up on day two because getting my degree mattered. Becoming a United States Marine mattered to me. My grandfather was also a Marine. So because it was important and it mattered to me, I showed up on day two and I showed up on day three. If I fast forward, I think it was on day three that we went for our first run. So day one was bad enough, but day three is they give everyone our little uniform to go running in. And we started running and I was in what I thought was good shape, but I had no idea the topography of San Diego and the mountains. I call them mountains, even though they're hills. And we started going for a run and I couldn't keep up in the runs with all of the male Marines and male Marine candidates. And in the Marine Corps, it's considered very shameful. It's just like you're not giving any respect when that happens. It was just a really, really hard first week. But again, it goes back to deciding okay, if I have this goal to earn the title of United States Marine, to start my career with this purpose of defending our country, I'm going to have to keep showing up even when I'm scared. I'm going to have to keep showing up when I know that I may not be successful yet. And so I did. I kept showing up and I wish I could tell you 2 weeks later everything was great. It took over 2 years of me showing up and working out and trying and striving and not being good enough to finally get to the point where I was measuring up. I was keeping up. And then I started exceeding everyone else. Right. And the happy end of the story is between my junior and senior year of college, all Marine Corps officer candidates going through NROTC have to go to Quantico, Virginia for something called Officer Candidate School, or OCS. And in that, it's 6 weeks. It's kind of like a mini boot camp for officers. If you can't get through that, you can't become a Marine. But they also measure you in every aspect: leadership and fitness and tactical ability, all that stuff. And when I graduated from Officer Candidate School and I came back to the University of San Diego, I ranked higher than my finishing ranking out of OCS was the highest out of anyone from my school. All those male Marines that I wasn't catching up to. So I was really proud of. I didn't have the nails anymore, but that's one of my most proud accomplishments. And part of the reason why I'm so proud of being that top finisher in Officer Candidate School from my unit is because I started so far behind and because I'm so proud of the effort I put into to be able to get there. And then as a result, the school who runs the RTC department, so the full-time, it was a Navy captain that was running it. They offered me I was the commander of the unit my senior year. It's called the Midshipman Battalion Commander. So out of 200 people in the unit, I was the student that was put in charge. It was the battalion commander, student battalion commander. So I share that not to impress anyone, but to impress upon everyone. For me, bravery didn't mean in those moments running into a burning building or running into battle. It meant showing up scared every day, knowing I'll probably not keep up or I might be embarrassed or I might fail or it's going to be hard. So bravery is, it's not just heroic moments. They're everyday moments because everyone has different fear, right? Everyone's scared of different things. So that's kind of my beginning story. And I didn't even realize all the psychology behind everything until I went back to school at Penn and studied psychology. But yeah, that's how my journey began.
And that's fascinating and roller coaster of excitement too. And when you were in school, I'm sure it was probably terrifying, right? You're joining the elite of the elite, and in your head, you have this idea of what it's going to feel like or look like when you get there or when you go through it. And I'm sure you had knowledge from your grandfather too and his experience. You're like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. And sometimes you really don't until you put yourself into that situation. So I'm really proud of
Yeah.
younger you for still going, "Okay, maybe this isn't what I thought it was, but I'm still here. I'm still gonna make it. I'm still alive. I get to get up another day and try again." And I think that
Yeah.
that's a really
Just
important
get up. Yeah,
good.
just get up and keep putting one foot in front of the other. How many times have you done this? Your audience has done this where you set a goal And the easy part of goal setting is setting the goal. Like, this is going to be exciting. It's the beginning of the year. I'm going to set this goal. And sometimes we think that our success is going to be linear. Oh, I'm just going to do this every day and I'm going to achieve my goal. And it's going to be like rainbows and butterflies and happiness along the way. And then when you start climbing the mountain of the goal pursuit, you realize like this is a lot harder than I thought it was. So my story, I think, hopefully relates to your audience because I think we've all been there, but we've got to choose to keep going,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, I just have to think back and go, there were times also that I almost quit. I mean, because especially during that freshman year, and you know what motivated me? This may surprise you, but you know what motivated me is that gentleman on day one who told me, you will never make it as a Marine. That actually fired me up because I wanted to prove him wrong, right? And I also didn't want to suffer the pain of regret. Did I want to go back to Minnesota around my family, my friends, and loved ones to live an easier life? No, I really, really wanted this. So a lot of times when you're in those moments and it's hard, like have a conversation with your future self and go, what does my future self want me to do in this moment? And that is keep showing up. Don't give in. Don't tap out. It's those moments when things are really hard. That's when our character is built. That's really when we reveal who we truly are. And we become more confident and we elevate our self esteem and self pride when we keep showing up. So it's so important to do for ourselves, right? Because I think this is where I know I'm already going on tangents here, but I think so many times I think in society, like the message is just self love and be easy on yourself. And if it's hard, just take a day off and don't be so hard on yourself. Do what's comfortable, what's easy. And that is the worst advice ever. Because if you give up on yourself, you feel like crap the next day or at the end of the day. You wake up and go, I tapped out. I could have kept going. So if you look at my core, I'm really a happiness scientist. I mean, I have my master's in positive psychology, which is the scientific study of elevating happiness and well-being. So I have a lot of stickers and hats that say embrace the suck, right? And all this, but it's not to make people miserable. It's to make people happiest when people go after the things they want and they stick with it and they keep promises to themselves. Their happiness, well-being, and their self-love gets larger. And that's so I'm not usually a softie, but I'm really all about self-love. So the tough Marine, yeah, I got that soft side. It's really it's about love, loving yourself.
You now understand that too as a scientist that like, the research has shown that happiness doesn't come from getting what you want all the time when you want it. Immediate satisfaction is not actually sustainable for long-term happiness. That doesn't happen. You do have to go through a painful event. You do need to go through an uncomfortable growth period, or you need to learn a new skill. You need to try something you've never done before. And whether or not you succeed at that thing doesn't matter, but the result of showing yourself through. I can tell myself to try something and actually achieve it or attempt to do whatever this is. And so it's not necessarily how long it takes you to get what it is that you want, but rather the fact that you're willing to try new and weird and uncomfortable things and go through those awkward periods and unfortunate
Exactly.
that teach you what really makes you happy.
Yeah. Yeah, awkward. You're right. Because it's going to be awkward. You're going to fail on the path to achieving it. And you just have to, and it's hard. You're making me think of, being brave is hard. So pursuing really important goals that will challenge you, the path to achieving that is going to be hard. It will sometimes suck, right? I talk about embrace the suck, what we say in the Marine Corps. But you know what also is really hard is not setting goals and staying in your comfort zone, right? So life is going to be hard either way. So you've got to choose. Do you want to choose the challenges and what's hard and being disciplined and keeping promises to yourself to go through that hard path, right? Or if you don't set challenging goals or you give up on yourself, then that's really hard because you don't feel very good about yourself. Like a great relationship is hard because you got to work at it. But being by yourself and not having a partner, loneliness is really hard. So like life is always going to be hard. So you got to choose which hard you want. Do you want to overcome the challenges and choose the hard part of discipline to get what you really want? Or do you want to experience the hard part of regret and not really liking what you see in the mirror?
Yeah. No, and I've seen that a few times too. I wouldn't be surprised if you had that on a hat, the choose your heart as well.
Yeah.
choose your heart. What's your version of that? And I've done a solo episode on the show where I've kind of touched on that. Like your health is worth the investment. It's worth the price that it's gonna you have in order to get what it is that you're hoping to achieve. Well, let's talk a little bit about that and about kind of your research. You've said previously bravery is trainable, necessarily innate. So, what's the clearest evidence that you've been able to cover where bravery is a muscle that anybody can?
Yeah, and that's a misnomer. A lot of people think that bravery is something you're just born with. It's a trait. Either I have it or I don't. And I just want the entire world to know that anyone can build a capacity to be brave. And I can say that with scientific certainty. It's a skill that you can build. And we'll get into how do you build? What are the exercises you can do to build it? But I also use the analogy of bravery is like a muscle. If someone said, I'm just not strong, we would say to them, well, you're just not strong yet. I mean, if you start going into the gym and you lift heavy things, that hurts a little to lift them, and then you're sore the next day and you recover and you keep doing that, you'll build strength. Bravery is basically the exact same way. So, for anyone out there that you feel like sometimes fear controls your behavior because you're scared of maybe failure or scared of putting yourself out there, you're just normal. We all have fears, but it's about starting small. Just like you go in the gym, like someone shouldn't go into the gym and try to bench 100 pounds if they've never lifted before. They should start out light. So you got to find things that are smaller goals that are uncomfortable to kind of start with those lower weights, and then you can build it up over time. And really, when you look at the neuroscience of bravery, that's where we know that like literally your brain changes as you do some of these bravery workouts. There is the ACC, there is the prefrontal cortex, and then there's all the lighting up the functional part of the brain. So when they've done MRIs and functional MRIs, and people are intentionally setting challenging goals that include some fear and then taking steps forward on shaky knees, we start seeing changes in the brain. So just like our muscles adapt when we lift heavy things and our muscles grow, when you start intentionally doing things that are hard or uncomfortable or scary, your brain is going to do the same thing like, oh, we need to change because it looks like we might encounter this in the future. So it will become easier for you to do that same thing. And then you can elevate the level of challenge or difficulty. Bravery is a muscle, and anyone can build that skill as long as they put in the work.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it feels reassuring, right? Because I'm sure somebody might be listening and they're going, I didn't join the Marines. I wasn't in the military. I'm not intense. Like I definitely am not a runner. How are these examples going to apply to me? And I'm glad that you brought that up, that anyone can do this. It's truly about the approach that you're choosing for what it is that you want to build up and stuff. So for a listener who may be dealing with transition or they're feeling really lost right now, career change, a breakup, a burnout, moving somewhere else, identity issues, whatever that may be, what is the first brave step that they should try, especially because they don't feel confident right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is, the definition of bravery is voluntary action in the presence of fear toward a noble, worthwhile goal. So you have to have something you're aiming for. Like just to say be brave is like, well, what does that mean? Am I supposed to go skydiving? Am I supposed to, you know, run after a bear? What does bravery mean? If we look at the definition of bravery, like it all starts with you've got to have a self-concordant goal, a goal that's intrinsically motivating. So if you're in a transition, you're in a place right now that's uncomfortable, right? And you're maybe a little bit stuck. So you need to figure out, okay, what would great look like? What is a life that I want to aim for? And then the brave steps are, what are the steps I need to take to be able to get there? So it always starts with what is a noble, worthwhile goal? So what is that? Like, and I'm so glad you brought up maybe someone just had a breakup, because bravery isn't always something that is physical. Many time it is maybe changing careers. Maybe someone's in a job and the job pays well and there's good benefits, but they are miserable. And they dread going to work. That is a really, really hard place to be in, especially when you've got good money coming in. Sometimes good gets in the way of great. Like to make the transition and try to move to a different job that's more fulfilling, that's really scary, right? But there's other things like maybe someone's biggest fear is going up and having conversations with people, and they want to have more friends. They want to maybe find that next special person, right? So their fear is that social interaction, getting over that social anxiety, right? So, or maybe it is, it could be something like public speaking. So it could be a specific skill. So bravery is so personal because we don't know what you're scared of. What scares you, what fears may hold you back, Amanda, is completely different than mine. Right? I speak on stages with thousands of people, so I'm not scared to speak in front of people where other people are. For me, I was really scared to start writing. When I started my journey and I wrote my book and I started writing for Psychology Today and for Forbes, like that was such a fear of mine. Like I've always been good at math and science, but my writing has always been a struggle. And so everyone has different fears. So the first step, figure out what is the thing that you want in your life that's really important to you, but you're a little hesitant to go after it because you know it's going to be hard. It's going to be scary.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Well, and facing that or admitting, I don't know if you do this with your any of your research studies, but drilling down to your why. You have to funnel yourself all the way down. I've heard some people talk about it 5 layers and other people say 7, so it just kinda depends, but you ask yourself, "So what are you afraid of?" "I'm afraid of public speaking." "Why?" "'Cause I am embarrassed by my voice." "Why?" Like, it drills all the way down, and then you kinda get
Yeah.
more issue, and you go, "Oh, that's what I need to fix first, not the public speaking." Like, that's not the threat. The threat is this teeny tiny insecurity or something that I've buried way down.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get to that, and then I can actually take that first step. I know we're bouncing a little bit, but you did mention earlier how people sometimes get too comfortable. So we just talked about people lost. How about we address the people that are in that comfort trap that you've talked about?
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, with where I am, or I'm too afraid to move on. So like I'm just gonna stay in my
Yeah.
bubble, my warm sheets, and like just never leave. And never change this because this is that I know, this is a place I understand, version of myself that I'm okay, like comfortable enough with. But I'm stuck in that trap. So how do you get me out as the bravery scientist? What do I need?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about why it's a trap and then how to get out of it. So I like to think of this as things are going to compound up in a good way to become more brave. Or if we choose in those moments to not do the brave thing, to decide to allow fear to control our behavior, what happens and how that becomes a trap. In general, like throughout each day, we have decisions to make. If there's this goal that I have to decide in this moment, do I do the brave thing, which means taking voluntary action in the presence of fear toward this noble, worthwhile goal? Or do I decide to allow the fear to control us and just to say, like, I'd rather just be comfortable. I'm choosing to not step forward. I'm a step back. Sometimes that's called cowering. I will never call anyone a coward, but sometimes that actually helps some of my audiences when I tell them, like, okay, you know that it's the thing you really want, but you're a little scared and you hesitate and you decide not to do it. That is a definition of it's the verb of cower. So, but if we allow that fear to control us or prevent us from going after what we really want, what happens there? Right? So what happens is our self-confidence takes a little, right? And then we didn't challenge ourselves in that moment. So the next time the next challenge comes, we become that lack of self confidence, that little dip in our self confidence makes it less apt to do the brave thing the next time. So you end up getting momentum in a positive way or a negative way. I love this analogy that I learned originally from Jonathan Haidt. He's from NYU. He wrote a book called The Anxious Generation about kids. Famous author, researcher, love Jonathan Haidt. But he used this example and it stuck with me. And it's actually in the beginning of my book, or I used a version of it. He was lecturing to us at Penn, and he talked about how somewhere in Arizona, they were doing research, actually how to grow an ecosystem potentially on the moon at some point. So literally they do this research and they created this biosphere that was supposed to mimic conditions that were, on the moon. And they were growing all these different plants, like just, so we could grow plants and do all that. And what they found is palm trees did extraordinarily well and they just thrived. They just grew up really, really fast. In fact, they were thriving so much that they actually had to move them outside of the biosphere because they were growing too fast.
Mm.
So they took these beautiful trees and they're just so gorgeous. So they didn't want to just throw them away. So they move them to whatever resort they took them to. And the very, very first time there were moderate winds, not really hard winds, but the first time there was even moderate winds, what happened to these palm trees is they broke. They fell over. And what he was sharing with us, and then I looked into all of the biology behind it, is when you look at trees and plants, what makes them the most resilient and strongest is if they are encountering stress and challenges as they're going up. And it's actually called stress wood, the type of wood in a palm tree that makes it more like nimble. So the quality of the wood as it's growing up is contingent on how much challenge the tree. So if the tree was in an area where there's wind all the time, it would have no problem. So he shares that story and he goes, and people are the same way, right? So for us, like if we get in this safe cocoon and we just don't want to encounter any stress or any challenges, then we're just going to become so fragile. And because we're so fragile, we're never going to want to go out into the world because we're scared of everything, right? And that just doesn't lead to a full life. And it's one of the reasons you can read the book, The Anxious Generation. He cites all the evidence there. This is why we have the highest levels of anxiety and depression being diagnosed, because people think that in order to be happy and to live my best life, I just want everything to be happy every moment of the day. I want comfort. I want ease. And that is absolutely not what is best for people in their development. So that's the comfort trap.
The life that looks the nicest, because that's what we're watching all the time on social media. They're selling you a dream, but what did it
Mhm.
get to that dream life where they can do these things? It's like, they had to do all
Yeah.
this stuff, or they had these other steps in the ladder ahead of you. So they already had a leg up in different ways. So you have to come up with your own way of figuring out how to build that life in your version of it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Money doesn't grow on trees, right? Yeah, to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that too, because on social media, what we see is we think there's all the success and it looks so easy, right? But that is not the reality. If you really talk to the person that's on social media and say, tell me about your journey, they're going to go, oh my gosh, I was a mess in the beginning and I had this challenge, I had this challenge. But people don't put that on social media. They
Right.
just make it look like they're so successful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that it's
know.
all blown up overnight, right? That's one thing I've read too, that, it took 10 years to become an overnight success, or that kind of phrase, right? That it's not just because you're just now hearing of a person doesn't mean that their research or their book or their fame was yesterday. Like, it happened
Yeah,
time, it built up, and so it kinda
right.
did.
And you asked a question, I don't know if I got to it. So like I described the comfort trap, but how do you get out of the comfort trap? And so in order to break free of the comfort trap, you have to take steps in the direction of bravery. So you've got to do the hard thing. Now, there's got to be the right dose, right? So if someone is never really they've been laying on the couch most of them and they're not in great shape, I don't want them to go and climb Mount Everest tomorrow. So you've got to find, how can you get started? What is the one brave thing you can do each day? And so what I teach in my book is there's basically 3 different things you can do to get out of the comfort trap. There's 3 exercises, and these are all evidence-based, based in psychology. One is on mindset. We have to believe we can do hard things. That comes from cognitive psychology. The second thing we can do comes from behavioral psychology, which is you take a step on shaky knees. A lot of people think that I'm just going to wait until I feel ready. Let's talk about someone with social anxiety, right? They really want to go up and talk to people. They want to get out of their bubble. They realize that staying home by themselves is not making them happy. But the mistake they sometimes make is they just wait until they feel inspired or confident to go up to somebody. That is not the way bravery works or building confidence. And I can cite Albert Bandura, leading researcher in self-efficacy. He actually did the groundbreaking breaking empirical studies on self-efficacy. What he found is many people think that you wait until you're confident and then you take the action, and that's the road to success. Right. And what he found in his research is that's absolutely backwards. It's backwards. So when you don't feel confident yet, you take a step and you realize, okay, that wasn't so bad. Or, okay, it wasn't perfect, but I took a step. What did I learn in taking that step? What will I do a little bit differently? So Albert Bandura found that if you want to accomplish your goals and you want to become confident, you got to take a step on shaky knees when you don't feel ready. And sometimes you may not be perfect, but you learn from that. So it's the taking steps before you feel ready or taking steps when you're scared. That is what builds the confidence. So anyone who is stuck right now, you're probably going like, what is wrong with me? Why do I not feel confident? I just can't take the step because I'm not ready yet. Not ready yet is just fear saying, don't take any action. You're scared of like maybe not doing it perfectly. So that's really that step number 2 on behavioral. And then the third exercise, I call it an exercise, but third strategy or intervention is what we call it in the literature, is based on social psychology. So that is surrounding yourself with people that will encourage you, which if you look at the word encourage is to put courage in you. So if you've got a goal, right, to do something, let's say someone who's got the social anxiety, find a friend that maybe was a little shy and has made some great relationships, have gone through that journey, or find someone who maybe is more outgoing and doesn't have a problem, and ask for their help. And if you surround yourself with a brave tribe, or if you surround yourself with people that know what your goals are, have the skills and wisdom to get there, and care about you, they're going to be the ones to encourage you, especially on the days when you just don't want to get out of bed, right? So having the accountability and having people that you can lean on to help you achieve your goals. So those are really the 3 steps. And there's so much more in each of them. So mindset, cognitive psychology, believing that it's possible, taking steps on shaky knees, which comes from behavioral psychology. I've got lots of tips on each of these. And then third is, how do you surround yourself with people that are not going to allow you to tap out? They're going to say like, okay, you're feeling like you just want to stay in bed today. You said you were going to go out to this coffee like meet up with other people with a similar interest and you don't feel like it. Nope, I'm not going to let you do that, Amanda. Get out of bed right now. Get ready. You are going to feel so much better if you go. So I'm not letting you tap out. I care enough about you. Like, come on, call me afterwards. So if you do those 3 things, like little by little, that's where the confidence emerges. Hey, you just feel a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. Bravery does not happen in miraculous moments overnight. It builds slowly like a muscle does, and it's worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm glad. I definitely want to get into the tips as well that you said that you had
Yeah,
for
I will.
3, but first, I'd really love it if you could maybe discuss, was there ever a moment where you found yourself trapped in that comfort trap? And what was going on for you at that time? And
Yeah,
how did you recognize it as a problem? And then how did you get
yeah.
out?
Yeah, I would say probably 3 to 4 years ago, I was in my own comfort zone. Now, remember, everyone has different ideas of what a comfort zone is. Like, so if I look 4 years ago, so I've had my own leadership development business for 11 years. And if I go back 4 or 5 years from the outside, I had the best life because I had the successful company. I was booked out a year in advance, being booked by Fortune 100 companies to do these things. I mean, it looks like I'm living a life, right? But inside, I had been doing the same leadership development workshops for clients for probably about 10 years because I did leadership development in corporate America and then I started my own company. And sometimes the comfort zone is just when you stop growing. So when you do the same thing and it's no longer challenging you and it's just getting comfortable. It's not miserable, right? And this is what positive psychology is too. It's not saying how do you take people from horrible depression and being down and having them, but positive psychology is how do you take people from being in a comfortable, good position, but how do you make them thrive and make them better? So for me, I was not as inspired by the work I was doing. It was really easy, and I had to reflect and go, is this what I want to keep doing moving forward? And when I really searched within me, I've always had a dream. I always wanted to go back and get an advanced degree. And I had a dream and I didn't really think it was possible. I'm like, I would love to go to an Ivy League school and get my advanced degree and maybe write a book. And maybe one day, like, be that keynote speaker, like the ones I've seen on stage, like, that is my dream. That's what I want to do. Right. And remember when I talked about good gets in the way of great? When you have these dreams, you think about, well, I have a family to support, right? I've got a really good thing going on. I've got a really good thing going. I'd be crazy to do something different, but I just decided in that moment, I really want this. Let me try. Right. So I've been in that situation. Right. And obviously I got through it because now I've written the book. I went to Penn to get my degree in positive psychology, but I had to use the skills that I'm teaching. I had to believe it was possible for me to get admitted into an Ivy League school to get my master's degree. By the way, it's a lot harder to go to an Ivy League school undergrad. Master's degrees are not as competitive. It's a 25% um, acceptance rate where it's like 2%. So it's a lot easier to get in there. But then I had people that love me and care about me that were giving me advice. I sought out people who went to this exact program because I found them on LinkedIn. I had conversations with them and I asked for advice and I got in to the top school in positive psychology, studying under Marty Seligman, the founder of positive psychology. I got in. And then when I finally got in, I learned more about not all aspects of positive psychology, but I learned about how fear can be the blocker of us thriving in life. I mean, fear, sometimes we know it and sometimes we don't, because fear sometimes disguises itself as I just want to keep you safe. I want to keep you small. I want you to just keep you in this little cocoon. But that can prevent you from living the life you are meant to live. I could go on, but I'd say that was the one time, especially because it's so recent and it's so live. Like I was in my own comfort zone. I was allowing a good thing to get in the way of me really going after what I really wanted, the impact I wanted to make in the world.
Yeah. And how do you feel now after taking that step towards bravery?
Well, it was a very hard process. I feel like I'm in such alignment to what the value I want to bring to the world. And I have more confidence, I have more self-pride. And that's a big part of us living our best life. It's really not even about like, oh, I published a best-selling book and all that stuff. It's about how you feel about yourself, right? For you to thrive in life, the relationship with ourself is so important. So I think I got my mojo back. I challenged myself as a Marine and then I got to corporate America and I had a great run there and I was really proud of my accomplishments and how I moved up. And then I started my own business and that felt pretty good. And then it, but then I got comfortable. So I feel like I was losing my mojo. I was just kind of in this comfort zone. So for me, recognizing that and then intentionally getting out of it, I feel like I'm back, baby.
Oh, that's really good. I'm glad that it's worked out so well so far. Was there a reason you chose just the master's instead of the full PhD program? Or
Well, the master's is the first step. I always said I have zero desire to get a PhD because when I look at studies, I really just want to read the abstract and be like, okay, what was the hypothesis and did it work? Like I am one of those, like, if you look at all the personality tests, like I'm a D in DISC, a red energy on insights. Like I'm just, I'm a type A. So I'm like, just tell me the point and let's move on.
yeah.
So to be a researcher, so earning a PhD means you become a researcher, right? I mean, that's all your full time. You're going to become a researcher and you get into the details. So I'm like, gosh, like I'm just not a detail girl. But then once you start kind of getting into your area, then you start loving the details. Like, well, tell me more. How is it set up? How do we know that it's true? So now I've kind of fallen in love with the details. So to be determined on what the next step is, I do want to do more research. Does that include earning a PhD someday? I've always said I have no desire, but I might be changing my mind on that.
Yeah. I did a master's in terrorism and substate violence. So I kept going, and that was the next PhD level would have been to be a teacher and to stay next. I was like, no, I want to be active. I want to use this and do something, like not want to teach it. I actually go and have the experience of doing it. So I understand. Yes, that's the word.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, and that's what I really care about is I want to understand all the like right now when I say I'm a researcher, it's because I've done the empirical research. I've looked at all the research that's been out there and now I've written my paper was on looking at all the other research and then and presenting what I know about bravery. The next step is actually doing studies where there's you take 500 people and half of them do this and half of them do that. So I haven't done that yet, but what I really my desire in the world is I want to help people overcome fears. That is the biggest motivator to me when someone that I work with, someone hears me speak or reads my book, and I get these stories back all the time. And they say that they were stuck in a comfort trap and they were not happy, and they started taking steps and now their life is so much better. And that's what I care about. Is I'm like you, I'm like, it's the application. I want to help people build bravery to live their best life. And I usually do it in corporate America, because when you teach the skills of bravery, which is, believing you can, taking the steps, and then building the network to support you. I mean, when I go into businesses, the bottom line is impacted. People are more successful and happier at work. But not only the side effect that I care about most is they're happier and their life is fuller. Yeah. So I'm like you. I like the application piece.
Yeah, the application part's what's really, really fun. Well, since we only have a few minutes left, let's definitely get into your book a bit. So, for anybody that's curious, it's The Bravery Effect, a parable teaching the science of conquering fear, achieving more, and living life to the fullest. So, I'd love it if you could, talk to us a little bit about your book. Why did you pick a
Yeah.
parable format? And, if a reader were to pick this up today, what are you hoping that it's going to unlock inside of them if they are?
So I wrote The Bravery Effect, keeping in mind the readers out there and the way that they like to learn and consume information. So the reason I chose a parable, let's start there, is that maybe for you and I, maybe we're kind of science geeks. And so we love reading like academic journals. Maybe we love really thick books with a bunch of science. I realize that sometimes when I even speak on stage and I get too much into the science, I see the eyes glazing over. So I realize that I need to deliver this in a way that's going to resonate to motivate people to act. And stories, if we look at the evolution of humanity, stories are the primary way that we teach and people remember. And I have been motivated. There's some books that I have read that I think that taught me lessons that really stuck. So in corporate America, like there's one called The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard. It's just this really simple story that teaches you how to be an effective leader. And so I have a lot of my clients read that book, or the 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. Like a lot of people like know that one. Like, he could teach all the science of why you should be getting up at 5 a.m. and starting your day, but like the story is what pulls you in. So I chose a story because I wanted it to really relate to people, and I wanted them to get to the end of the book. Do you know how many books I have, Amanda, that I buy? And if they're the traditional like business books or psychology books, like I tend to get about halfway through. And then I kind of skim and just look and then I don't finish the book. And maybe it's just my personality. As I say, like, I want the point and move on. I want people to learn all three strategies. I want them to get to the end of the book. So this is a story and you're going to want to know what happens next. And I really want people to see themselves in the main character, because every one of us have things that we fear that hold us back in certain aspects of our life. Like someone that you think is like super confident, they have fears holding them back. Every one of us has fears. And I wrote it to be very relatable. So I think you'll see yourself in the main character. And if any of your audience has families, the main character has a family, and we talk about how the impact of this person learning about bravery has a big impact on family dynamics too, right? So it's not like you just do something that's just going to affect you at work. It affects you as a whole person. So the book it only takes about maybe 2.5 hours to read as a story. And every single thing that Alex, the main character, does, as he's told by his wise mentor, Andrea, it's all based on science. So I also take great pride in I only talk about and teach people to do things that I know are based on scientific evidence in psychology. There's some people out there on social media that like, I think you should do this. I think you should do this just because it worked for them. I think we should take a responsibility to make sure that anything I teach people to do, including in the book, you can be confident that if you take the same step, because it's been studied, it will lead to higher levels of success, goal accomplishment, and life satisfaction. So that's a little bit about the book. And then, just if your audience is interested, I do just have some things that I give away. If any of this has piqued anyone's interest, you can see in my heart is I just want people to learn this and apply it. So in my website, there is a free bravery assessment that takes about 3 minutes to take, and you get back your results, and it gives you a score based on where do I need more work in terms of exercise? Is it on the cognitive side? Is it because I don't believe in my abilities? Do I have that negative self-talk? Is it the lack of belief that's really pulling me down? Or is it I believe and I dream, but I just don't do? Is it the behavioral side? Or is it because I don't have the right social network to support me? So there's a bravery assessment that gives you a score. And then I give a free Bravery Blueprint. And it is an interactive guide that asks you to set the goal, and it gives you steps to learn some of these tips that we talked about, how to use the power of yet, right? How to believe you can, how to take steps. So all of it's there for free. I want everyone to learn to be brave because it'll make your life better. You'll be more successful. You'll live a happier life. So please just take the free stuff. And if it helps you, please pass it along. That is what is in my heart, right? And the book, please buy the book. I would love that. It's on Amazon, everywhere there. Oh, and then my website is jillschulman.com, which is just my name. It's JILLSCHULMAN.com. So just go to my website, get all the freebies, and then please send me a message over social media. Like, I'm on all the social media platforms. My very, very favorite thing in the whole world
Yeah.
is when I see the message come in of someone saying like, oh my gosh, I did this and this is the result. So please let me know how it goes. I love hearing the success stories.
I will definitely make sure that your information's added in the show notes, and we will tag you on our socials as well, so that way you could collaborate and stuff if you would like to do that too. So I will make sure all of that is added there. And then for your final question, then if let's see, if you could give one do it scared kind of blueprint, you did just kind of mention that you have the freebie print option, but if there's somebody listening right now and they are afraid that they might be wasting their potential, what should their blueprint be? What would that look like?
If I just were to find one tip, I want you to develop a relationship with your future self. And that is, what does your future self want? What do you want your future self to look like? What are those goals? It's a great exercise to do. But the bravery is required when you're taking the steps and it gets hard, right? This is where I want you to develop this relationship with your future self, to ask your future self questions. It's very, very powerful. Let's say, like, I want to get fit and it's really challenging and hard because maybe I'm not in great shape and I'm intimidated to go to the gym or something like that. When in that moment where you don't want to get up and keep that promise to yourself, just ask yourself the question, what does my future self want me to do in this moment? Does my future self want me to hit snooze and not get up and go for a walk for 20 minutes like I promised myself? Or does my future self want me to follow through on this promise? So it's amazing how powerful your future self can be, a wonderful mentor, coach, and guide. Because whatever your future self is going to tell you the truth, the answer, right? Now, sometimes some people are like super ambitious and they do too much. And you ask your future self, like, in this moment, what should you do? It's Saturday morning, you've got work to do, but your kids want to play with you. What does your future self want you to do? Wants you to prioritize your family and play with your kids right now. So it's amazing how the wisdom of your future self can guide you to make the right decisions. Right. So that would be just one little practical tip to help. And then, yeah, just download the Bravery Blueprint, because then it's got that one and a lot more.
Thank you so much, Jill. Any closing thoughts before I finish up for us?
Well, I'll just end with my signature phrase. It's on the hats I give out at my keynotes and some of the stickers and stuff I give out, which is this: embrace the suck. And of course, it sounds a little bit harsh, but I want to end by helping your audience understand what we mean by that. So that is something that I learned as a Marine. We would say, just embrace the suck. And I thought it was just maybe a cruel and unusual punishment just to make us feel like, that we're supposed to like being miserable. But I want to just share the wisdom in embrace the suck, right? So life is going to be hard. We began with that. So life is going to be filled with challenges and adversity. And I want you to look at the challenges and the stress that you're facing not as things to avoid that are bad, but instead look at the challenges and the stress and the occasional adversity as right? Because if we look at challenges and adversity and things that are hard and always run away from them, that's what leads to the comfort trap. And then we live a smaller life and we don't live to our potential. And that's what can lead to you sometimes feeling that anxiety because you're too scared to try, or even being depressed because you're not going after what you want. So embrace the suck is a reminder that when things are tough because you're starting to take steps towards something you really want and you encounter a challenge, this is the price of progress. You are encountering a challenge and you're encountering some stress because you're trying to do something that is challenging, that's going to lead to your higher self. And that is where, when things are really hard, this is where growth happens. And I can end with even in the brain. If you want to get the best workout in the gym, you need to lift really heavy so you're sore, right? So the moments where you fail and you're like, oh God, it feels horrible. That is when the most rewiring happens in your brain and you're learning and you're growing. So, when things are tough, I just want you to remember like being on the path and encountering the adversity, right? This is good for you. We are meant to strive, and you may not be successful every single time, but you're going to learn from it. That's how you grow and develop. So we want to choose the hard on our terms by moving toward our goals. We don't want to experience the hard part of not liking who we see in the mirror and living a small life. So embrace the suck is
Yes.
scientifically valid. So keep it in mind.
Yes. Jill, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. And everyone, you know how to find us, hello@podcastforthelost.com, and for our email. And then our website is the same, podcastforthelost.com. All of our in socials, Podcast for the Lost. And I will add all of Jill's contact information to your show notes. I will add links to her book and the freebies that support the book as well. You can find her and hire her for a keynote speech or work with her through her website. So all of that will be added. And please leave us a comment. Let us know what you enjoyed about the show, any feedback for Jill, so that way she can respond to you as well. I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next week. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.